stream live. The recording and transcript will be published afterwards on the States Assembly website. All electronic devices, including mobile phones, should be switched to silent. So we've got 1.5 hours for this hearing. And I'm Deputy Catherine Curtis, the chair of the panel.
I'm Deputy Helen Miles, member of the panel.
Deputy Mayor Rilla Hegarah, Minister for Justice and Home Affairs.
Richard Vibert, Assistant Minister for Justice and Home Affairs.
And Nathan Fox, Associate Director of Justice Policy.
Kate Bryden, Chief Officer, Justice and Home Affairs.
Robert Smith, Chief of Police.
Thank you, everyone. So my first questions are about domestic violence. And Minister, as Domestic Violence Awareness Month is marked across the British Isles this October, could you outline what specific actions, campaigns or initiatives Jersey is undertaking to raise awareness or support victims?
Yeah. Throughout 25, obviously, we've continued to highlight all aspects of violence against women and girls relating to awareness campaigns. In particular, we have concentrated on where victims can find support locally and what coercive control can look like as part of domestic abuse and why it can be hard to spot. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, as you said. This month, to mark the latest cohesive control campaign has run both by the Government of Jersey on social media channels and building a safer community. And they've also got social media channels. In addition, for the last 2 weeks of October, the messaging is also running on digital screens at Jersey's bus station. This is important as this means that more people will see these messages. Obviously, we're not always, not everybody's got a mobile phone. So I think it's important that those messages are there. And we also recognise, obviously, that somebody may be restricted or denied the access to a mobile phone. This is, as I said, why it's important that the campaign is not aimed only at people who are experiencing the abusive relationship, but also to make other people more aware. So people's family, friends, the employers, colleagues, those people will be identifying potentially that that person's personality's changed. They may have changed, maybe changed the way that they're dressing, their behaviour generally. So I think that is actually quite important for us to be able to identify as a community. So I think it needs to be more out there, not just concentrating on one sort of individual.
Okay. Right. And has there been any recent changes in the way domestic abuse cases are reported recorded or responded to by the police?
No, nothing in particular, but as you'll undoubtedly seen and you've just heard from the Minister, incidents of domestic abuse are regularly publicised, and indeed a number of those incidents are in this building being heard. So nothing has changed of any particular significance other than the importance of ensuring that we maintain a confidence in communities and particularly those vulnerable groups that the Minister has referenced, that people have confidence to report to States of Jersey Police and indeed other agencies and other charities which have also been referenced. If I've seen one thing over the last maybe 10 years now, maybe a little bit more, is increasing confidence for people to come forward. And anybody listening to this today and watching this today, I repeat that, to give people confidence to come forward and report to police or other agencies if you want, to allow us to resolve the issue or indeed take prosecutions if we need to.
And do you think that neighbours or friends would know where they should go to raise any concerns?
We are at pains, States Jersey Police are at pains to, whenever we have an incident involving a form of domestic abuse, to ensure that we have the charities mentioned, for example, like JAR and the others, at the end of each press release. So you will see that. I think once or twice we've missed that opportunity, but we take every opportunity to make sure that we direct people to those charities, because of course some people may not want to go to the police, and we understand that. I mean, I really want them to come to the police, but I think we do a good job in trying to direct to those other charities, and we work closely with those other charities and other agencies as well.
Yeah, I think one point is probably worth mentioning as well. A new domestic abuse coordination group is being convened under the Building a Safer Community umbrella. So obviously that will have a framework to drive forward ongoing work in relation to domestic abuse, because obviously we need to sort of continue this momentum moving forward.
Okay, that's good. So my next question is about prosecution and conviction. So what proportion of reported domestic sexual offences have resulted in prosecution and conviction in recent years?
Okay, between 2021 and 24, the proportion of domestic sexual offences resulted in prosecution is 26% and conviction 41%.
Right. Okay. So the question was about, yes, reported domestic sexual offences. Yes, okay, thank you. And what are the current barriers to achieving higher prosecution and conviction rates, do you think?
I think the barriers are quite complex and include many different factors such as fear of Financial dependency is obviously one big thing, and fear of losing access to their children and housing. So I think there's quite a broad breadth sort of reason why people maybe don't come forward. But I think also as well is the more convictions we get in court, the more that people will have confidence to come forward. So I think as we move along this journey, and I'm quite heartened really that where we are going, and because this has been a long journey in relation to domestic abuse and domestic violence. So I think it's really good that the journey seems to be gathering pace. And I don't know if Robin wants to add anything to that.
Gathering pace is a good phrase to use, but as I think we'd all agree, there's still a distance to go. Particularly some of those difficult groups that the Minister's already mentioned, you know, where we have fear of retribution, retaliation, where there is housing involved, where there are other factors. And indeed, it may not always be that the prosecution route is the best outcome. I mean, it's my favoured outcome, as you can imagine as a police officer, but working out what is the best outcome that protects the victim, but also protects their family where those circumstances are there as well. So what I would say is that over the years, the way we try and address this is far more sophisticated than it ever used to be. We look at some of those other factors that the Minister's already mentioned, including things like housing and losing access to children in the round to see what is the best outcome if it isn't prosecution, which is my favoured one.
Yeah, and I think, can I just also comment on that in relation to the changes that myself and the Minister for Social Security have made in relation to, or not, I haven't made the changes, she's made the changes, but following discussions, that now that people are here, have come to the island, potentially, you know, in different kinds of work permit type scenarios where, you know, they would have been unable to potentially get out of that environment. So we've put things in place. So if it's a financial thing and the housing and the children, they can then be able to use the local facilities that are available for people in relation to domestic violence. And I think that is an important thing. And as a result of that, having spoken to them at that facility quite a while ago now, they said that it had had already a significant impact, because I think sometimes that is the thing. It is very difficult if you are an individual that is reliant on someone else to have, you know, for housing and to have your children. And of course, people aren't going to want to leave their children behind.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite important.
So they're hopefully not trapped in a dangerous situation.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah. And sort of more generally about support services, what's available for victims. Do you know if there are any new initiatives underway or changes around funding for support services?
Right. Through the Violence Against Women and Girls, I'd actually requested the Chief of Probation and the Director of Mental Health Services, Mental Health, Social Care and Community Services who undertook a gap analysis on counselling and therapeutic support provisions for victim survivors for violence against women and girls. They've had a meeting involving Frida, JDAS, Victims First, and also views from the NSPCC. Obviously, police and probation services. This highlights that there are some shortfalls. with only one sort of specialist DA, domestic violence counsellor on the island, leading to delays and placing pressure on services like JDAS and JAR. There is also limited provision for children, especially those who witness abuse or parents in prison. So additionally, the concerns include barriers to compensation access as well, insensitive correspondence from criminal injuries compensation boards, etc., etc. So I think the thing is that we do need to look at all of this moving forward and start to look at how we can address some of those gaps. Yeah. And it may be that through our work on the pieces of legislation that we are bringing forward in relation to the violence against women and girls, that maybe some of these things need to be addressed. So, you know, as an example, you know, JDAS or some of the other services that provide follow-up services, we may need to look at them as well. And I think we need to, when we bring forward those pieces of legislation, we need to make sure that all of the things that we identify and we think that are missing, we need to try and address that so that we can actually have a better service moving forward. I think it is. I'm not saying we haven't got I'm not saying we've got a bad service, but I think services can always be improved in this area. Okay. We're never going to be 100% perfect in anything, but I think we just need to keep moving forward, and we need to try and have the best facilities that we possibly can.
Okay, and that gap analysis is going on now, then?
Yeah, but they've identified those things, and as I said, we need to now start looking at all of those areas.
Okay, that's good. And I was going to ask you about encouraging reporting, especially among vulnerable groups, but you've already said about, you know, the signs at the bus.
Yeah, I think I'm probably getting a bit boring for the public in relation to this, but I do really want to ensure that people in our migrant community feel that they can come to the States of Jersey Police and report matters, or to go to one of the other agencies, because I do sometimes feel that they may not have the confidence to go into a police station, but I would encourage anybody in that situation to do so. Go with a friend, or if they know anybody in the community, that they ask them where they can go, because I think that is really, really important.
Okay, and is there information about this in the International Cultural Centre, do you know?
I think that there is.
We need to check.
I need to check, but I
Yeah.
think there is.
Okay.
I think there is.
All right, thank you for that.
Thank you. I just had some questions around young offenders in particular. So on the 26th of September, during the private briefing from the Minister for Children and Families, the panel heard that the responsibility for Greenfields had been transferred to that minister. So, Minister, can you outline the rationale between the decision to transfer the responsibility for Greenfields from yourself to the Minister for Children?
Right. The rationale really for this change is policy intent is that children as children first and offenders second. So the majority of under 18 serving a sentence of youth detention or remanded in custody will be placed with a secure children's home, somewhere like Greenfields, for example. The secure home is staffed by SIPES, residential care workers, and the young people have looked after child status. So from that point of view, I think because the Minister for Children and Families has oversight of children's servicing, including Greenfields, that transfer of responsibility makes sense to go to them. It shouldn't really be sitting with myself, who's the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. We believe that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, so I suppose the matter that did bring it to head was the matter of remission to some extent in that. And it seems when you're thinking of putting children first and offenders second, the fact that children couldn't get remission was an anomaly, and the fact that the Minister for Children was not responsible for that was the second anomaly. So although we found a way to work around that and allow remission, it isn't it's a somewhat cumbersome system. So of course this law will enable us to grant remission for a third of the sentence. And I think that's perhaps the biggest change that will be visible from this.
Yes.
At the moment, you have to go through quite a cumbersome procedure. You have to sign it off personally.
Yeah.
In future, and I think Nathan, you're correct, but the placement panel will in fact make that decision?
It's the minister, which will be the Minister for Children and
Yeah.
Families, or it's can be delegated, as in the case of the prison, to the operator of their facility. So the governor, effectively, which will be the Greenfields manager.
And Children's Services are on that placement panel, so will have input into as well as providing a report on the behaviour, but they will have an input during the placement panel meeting.
But
Are all the children that are admitted to Greenfields looked after children?
No, there
No,
won't be.
no.
No.
Can you describe the current working relationship between the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs and the Minister for Children and Families? It's a bit of a strange
Well,
question
it's a
because
very
I know
good,
you're
as far as
Assistant
I know.
Minister. I know he's
And
your
Mary and
Assistant
I were
Minister,
discussing
yeah.
this earlier. 'Cause
So-
we lived on we lived as children on neighbouring farms.
Yes,
In
although we
fact,
didn't
the
go to school
extent
together.
that They were one farm originally.
Yeah, in
So
the-
we've known each other for
For a long time, but-
So,
But-
so outside of the informal mechanisms
Yes.
and the time
No,
that
I
you've,
think-
you've spent together and how well
So
you know each
no,
other,
I
are
do
there
some
any,
of this.
Can I
are
be
there
honest?
any formal
We
mechanisms?
don't know each other that well on a personal basis. But
Are there
what-
any formal mechanisms
No.
to ensure that there's coordination between justice and children's services when you're dealing with youth offending?
I think the partnership, we've under Building a Safer Community, we've got the partnership board now, and that has helped in looking at some of the gaps, and I think is quite effective. I mean, something that's come out of the latest meeting, which actually was only a week ago, but one of the things is that the Honorary Police have said, yes, they get a probation report and there's someone from probation in when they see a young person, but it would be useful on occasions to have somebody from Children's Services as well. So there's a gap that's been identified through this. I think we realise there's communication issues in some cases between departments, and we're addressing those. Certainly, prior to the partnership board, you have a daily meeting now, Robin, between Children's Services and the police, for instance, which didn't exist before. So the fact that, I'm the Assistant Minister and also the Minister for Children and Families has, I think, helped immensely in bridging those
Gaps, yeah.
Yeah, well-
communication issues and gaps. And there are more, I mean, the job's not done, but there are more out there,
I think also the fact that it was actually Richard that suggested to me about would I like to have him as my Assistant Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, and that for me made a lot of sense. From the perspective that obviously Richard's got experience in relation to the Honorary Police and being a constable and everything else is of benefit in my view, but also as well we are at the same meetings. We safeguarding, corporate parenting board, probation board. So there's an awful lot of meetings and we're both on I can't remember the other one that the bailiff runs now.
The
Criminal
Family
Justice
Justice
That's the
Council.
one. That's the one. So I think the thing is that there's always a benefit that if I'm not there, Richard is, so that he can double hat, and so there is always benefit. And I do actually think that the two roles are very, very closely linked, particularly when you look at youth justice.
Okay, thank you.
And it's not actually, it's not youth justice as such, but again, where it's come out recently is we've looked at the drugs and alcohol courts in the UK, and the fact that I'm the children's minister, but also the tie-in with Home Affairs has meant that perhaps that's something that we might not have looked at years ago. And I mean, I went recently to Luton to sit in on a drugs and alcohol court, and I think something we'd like to introduce, but would probably be, I think possibly wider than that, in that we'd look at other circumstances where children have been taken out of the care of their parents, but the approach was, a real eye-opener, and also the fact that I understand the success rate of children removed through the courts going back to their parents is about 19%. whereas through this more informal method, it's 50%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how is the effectiveness of your joint working monitored then? Have you got a performance framework in place or a review process?
No, not a formal
Nothing
process.
formal.
Not a formal
No.
process about the work we do now.
And do you involve young offenders and their families in shaping your services and providing feedback on their experience whilst they're with you?
We do get feedback, yes, from young people, and certainly some of those, yes, without a doubt, some of those are those who've been through the justice justice system, and I think that's quite useful. In fact, recently, we've had suggestions from 2 individuals that had recently been into Greenfields as to how we could make improvements.
But that's informal. Did you have actual formal feedback mechanisms to ask young offenders and their families about their experiences?
I suppose was it that informal? It was a deliberate. It was it was done. We inquired from them, so it wasn't them just spontaneously. But there isn't a formal set process, no. But nevertheless, we have involved them in and asked for their feedback.
Thank you.
I have some questions now which arise from the Attorney General's guidance on drugs recently. So, Minister, what's your view on the rationale behind the Attorney General's decision to issue more lenient guidance for small-scale personal drug possession?
Obviously, the Attorney General in October 2024 issued a direction guidance for centenaries dealing with cases of possession of drugs in the parish hall. Obviously, that is guidance to the centenaries, and this places the previous guidance following the coming into force on the Article 28 of the Misuse of Drugs Jersey Law 1978, which is included by the Public Order Law. This will basically provides the centenaries to impose a fine to level 1 on the standard scale where a person is charged with possession of Class B or Class C drug and accepts the decision of the centenary. Obviously, this is really guidance to the Honorary Police, but generally speaking, as I said, that's a matter for the Attorney General, but I meet regularly with the Attorney General, and as does Richard, and obviously anything that in relation to changes in relation to the Honorary Police, which would obviously have an impact on policing and the court processes, then we will have a discussion about. So effectively, we have discussions and meetings so that we can discuss all of these kinds of matters before sort of this guidance is sort of delivered, if you like.
Okay.
I think with young people, if you don't mind if I...
No, of course.
I think my experience is that particularly with young people, this is something that I think has been, required for some time. Previously, what we actually had to do was go to the Attorney General, where young people often don't think, they're not aware, most of them, that, for instance, ecstasy is a Class A drug, and that if you've got a couple of tablets, you can be in serious trouble. And so what we were having to do was to go to the Attorney General for one-offs in every case and say, look, the implications here. This young person's get off to university. If they go, if it's a conviction through court, that could be an end to their, academic career. So I think it's what was needed, and I think for particularly for young people, it removes that grey area where am I going to be prosecuted or not? Is it going to be a parish hall? I think all the time they were waiting to find out, for instance, that these one-offs was not good for them.
Okay, so you'd say you welcome that for
I
young
welcome it,
people?
yes, yeah.
have the states of Jersey Police and Honorary Police officers been supported in implementing this guidance? You know?
First of all, you would like to answer, Mr.
Yes, certainly.
First of all, I'm supportive of the guidance. Of course, the guidance says at low level, first and second. To my mind, there can't ever be a third.
No.
If there is a third, then appropriate action needs to be taken. I do think that we don't want to be criminalising particularly young people at a time when that can have such a huge impact on their future lives that is just counterproductive. But if you haven't figured it out by the third time, then there has to be a more significant problem, which could be an indication for addiction, and from addiction we often see further offending. So it does have my support. I'm very confident it'll have the support of my honorary police colleagues because it's the right thing to do, and most of all, it's a proportionate thing to do. So yes, it has my support.
And I think also, which I'd sort of forgotten about, is that the centennial will, in some cases, also ask for attendance at the Drugs and Alcohol Advisory Service as a means of monitoring how the young person is progressing. I think that's the best way to say it. And I think that's essential. Sometimes there are cases where the young person is struggling, and using the Drugs and Alcohol Advisory Service is an excellent way of dealing with that, as well as the sort of low level sanction that they'll get from the parish hall.
Okay, so just thinking about how this actually works out for the person involved, do they, if they receive a written caution or fixed fine under the guidance, do they have a record of that might affect their future? Or?
No, they have what's called a parish hall sanction. It's on a different record, so it's not a criminal. It's not conviction of a criminal offence.
Okay.
But we did say we were going to look at something to ensure that didn't ping up when people were asking
Stuff
for
on enhanced DBS.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's something that we'd acknowledge that we need to look at.
So that's still got to happen then, yeah?
I mean, I know I've dealt with a number of young people that went through the process, and it didn't subsequently affect their ability to get a place at university. I don't know that parish hall sanction does ping up.
Picks
I
up
think
on
it can
enhanced
do.
DBS,
Yeah,
it always
it
does.
Does it?
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, and that would.
I'm
So I think
surprised.
that is something. Yeah, it is something that we said that we
Always.
would look
Yeah.
at. That is something we said we'd look at.
So that's going to happen yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So presumably there will be lower prosecution rates then after this change, generally, anyway?
Well,
Lower criminal prosecution,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
one would hope so.
Okay, and so I was going to ask about how the public will be informed. I don't know if there's any extra...
To be honest, I mean, I'm not sure we'd be sort of putting that as a public statement in relation to, public awareness. I think it's, if somebody's dealt with, if they're a first offender, then they will obviously be dealt with in that way. I actually don't know whether the Attorney General's guidance is publicly...
Not usually, no. No.
Published on the website.
If you know where to look,
If you know where
it
to
is a
look, you
matter
can
of
find it.
public
Yeah.
record, but it's
But
never
we
publicised.
don't put it out in the media or
If
anything.
you Google it, it'll be there. Yeah.
I think there
Yeah.
was an article in the paper, but anyway,
There may have been.
yeah, just
There
a
may
short
have
one,
been.
I think.
I don't think it contained the list of drugs and the.
No,
No.
Will there need to be any other legislative changes around this, or you've already mentioned about checking up on the DBS thing, but no legislative changes?
No,
No.
because we made the ability for centenaries to impose fines in these circumstances were introduced in crime public order,
Okay, and
which was brought to the Assembly last year.
and I was going to ask also about the consultation process with the Attorney General, but you've already said you have regular
Yeah.
meetings and
Yeah,
discussions.
we have regular meetings. Obviously, the guidelines by the Attorney General are produced for the benefit of the courts and the honorary police. But when we meet, we discuss sort of all aspects of the things that both the Attorney General is looking at and things that we want to look at as well. So that's a sort of a two-way street.
That's good. Okay.
Jersey lifts. Can you outline your response to the use of the Jersey Lifts platform, particularly in relation to public safety and regulation and any concerns around safeguarding?
Obviously, if the State of Jersey Police are advised of a driver offering lifts for reward outside of what could be considered a contribution to cover costs of the journey, and the driver can be identified, they will be sent an advice letter and warned that their actions may be unlawful. A record of the warning is attached to the vehicle's registration details so that if it is stopped by officers, they can assess if any offences are being committed. Obviously, as we're coming up to sort of festival parties and work events, etc., the State of Jersey Police would remind people to make responsible choices when trying to get home at the end of the evening.
Thank you. Have you got any plans to formally assess or regulate informal transport arrangements like Jersey Lifts?
I mean, the ongoing prevalence of the illegal taxi operators remains a concern, requiring continued attention from the Department of Infrastructure. Obviously, the legislation sits with them, not me, with the support of the States of Jersey Police. SIJP are, as I said, routinely engaging and stopping and trying to identify offenders, investigate individuals operating outside of the bounds of the regulations. However, it should be noted that recent prosecutions have not been successful in relation to these things. It is recognised that a substantial proportion of islanders utilise these informal lifts. Commonly, SAB, they're maintaining their proactive approach to this and delivering those safeguarding messages. But obviously, this is part of a number of priorities. We've got the Fatal Five, and the State of Jersey Police are busy doing other things as well. So it is not off the radar, but it is something that they will address as and when they're able to. And if people report something, then they will investigate that as they would anything else. And as I said, the information in relation to moving forward then is always to take something which is regulated.
Thank you. Can I just ask, is there any intention for the police to do more around those who are advertising on Facebook that they're doing this?
We are not taking any particular action for those advertising on Facebook. What I do recognise is it's a wicked problem. It's a wicked problem with some quite difficult solutions. In the past, I have been criticised for saying that enforcement is not the only solution. Well, enforcement isn't the only solution because we've enforced, and it isn't the solution because it did not end up in a conviction, so that the law does not altogether allow it. So, as the Minister has said, the solution always is when we work together, and that includes the taxi associations and everyone else to find out what is the best way around this. But I absolutely accept States Jersey Police is part of that solution, but the solution is trying to find something that is a wicked problem.
Okay. Right. Thank you. So I just have a couple of questions now about police complaints. Following the recent FOI disclosure regarding police complaints and the lodging of the draft police complaints regulations, could the Minister explain what actions are being taken to improve transparency and public trust?
The draft police complaints and conduct Jersey Police Force regs and honorary regs, as you know, 2025 provides a number of strict timelines into the investigation, must be adhered to. So to ensure that the complainant and the person being investigated are both kept updated, if an investigation is not concluded within a prescribed period, which is initially 12 months, and every 6 months thereafter, the Deputy Chief Officer must report to the Commission, outlining the progress made, reasons for delay and the steps being taken to bring the matter to conclusion. The regulations will ensure that procedural and process matters will be brought together into a single cohesive, basically coherent framework. The focus of these reforms is on resolving matters early, reasonably and proportionately. What is now obviously the Police Complaints Authority will be the Commission. we also will also be notified of any complaint at the outset, and it can also bring any matter to the attention of the chief officer where necessary. The Jersey Police Complaints Authority is involved throughout the process and may review decisions or assessments and make recommendations as it sees fit.
Okay, that's coming back to the, well, it's coming to the States Assembly quite soon, isn't it?
5th of November.
Yeah, okay. Great. And specifically, what can we expect the proposed measures, such as publishing anonymised findings and holding public disciplinary hearings in some cases, into former and possibly investigations into former officers to be introduced? So when can we expect?
Well, once these regulations are, the regulations have now been lodged, as I said, on the 25th, will come in on the 5th of December. Sorry, yes, will come into force on the 5th of December.
Right.
So, yeah, that's when it will all come into effect. And then that means you can then make a complaint against somebody within 12 months of them having left the organisation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Draft marriage and civil partnership, dissolution and separation, Jersey law.
Yep.
The law has been lodged,
Yeah.
but can you please outline the changes that this proposal will bring?
Right, okay, the key reforms will be the introduction of no fault dissolution process for both marriages and civil partnerships, which is obviously a really good thing to do from the point of view of people being able to get out of a relationship if they want to. Standardisation of terminology with dissolution used to describe the legal ending of both a marriage and civil partnership. Removal of the existing 3-year time bar, enabling couples to apply for dissolution at any time following their marriage or civil partnership. Flexibility for an application for dissolution to be made jointly or individually. Removal of the ability to contest a dissolution once proceedings have commenced. Provisions for future consideration of pension matters, including the potential for pension sharing, and promotion of alternative dispute resolution to support more constructive and less adversary outcomes. And I think this is all quite important, particularly, if you've got somebody in a coercive relationship, you certainly removing the 3-year ban, you want to be able to, for people to be able to get out of those relationships in a quick way, and also preventing people from being able to contest them as well.
Can you confirm which stakeholders were consulted as part of this law?
These amendments are in line with recommendations made by the Jersey Law Commission in 2015. The consultation paper on divorce reform and the reply to it was made by Advocate Barbara Corbett. In addition, from a court perspective, the draft law enhances the court's existing powers in relation to financial arrangements and interim housing needs during the resolution process. So this legislation had commenced prior to me taking over the role, and so that's where the sort of consultation has
Do
been.
you know whether the churches or any religious groups were consulted as part of this?
From my briefing from the officer that actually did the work, the answer to that is yes. But I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I certainly, when I was briefed on this, I am sure that was the case, that they have been consulted. But I'll double check that to make sure that that's correct.
I just wanted to ask, were any concerns raised about changing from what there was to a no period of separation being needed at all?
I think
Someone I think could get divorced the day after marriage.
let me just run through some of
I
these
don't think we've
things.
got the detail, I think. we
No,
need to
the
double
divorce
check that.
reform future civil partnership round. There was 168 responses to the consultation, 18 responses by email.
Yeah.
Public meetings, there was 3 meetings. Nobody attended. Okay. Key stakeholders consulted. The law, as I've said, non-JFLA members with interest in legislation, family judge in the Royal Courts Family Division, Deputy Bailiff, the Ombudsman, the Jersey Pension Association, Feedback throughout the consultation process was generally positive and with strong support for moving forward from the current fault-based divorce system. Apart from the 2018-2019 consultation, public engagement was limited, but formal responses from the consultation were considered in the drafting process.
Okay, thank you. In terms of other legislation that you've got coming forward, can you just provide us an update on the status of the VAUG legislation, please?
Oh. I might ask Nathan this one,
Yep.
because he's probably
Happy
up
to.
to speed for today.
Yes. Okay, so we have 5 separate pieces of legislation running. We have a stalking and harassment law, which has been considered by the Attorney General and the Judiciary recently. We've got some tweaks and changes to make on it, but broadly speaking, it looks like it's going to be something we can take forward. It will have a new offence of harassment, slightly recast from what we have at the moment under the public order law. It will have a stalking offence. It will have an aggravated stalking offence, and that's on the UK model. And it will have the capacity for the court to provide for a stalking protection order for an individual who feels and can establish that they are the subject of stalking activity but hasn't got a prosecution. So that's a preventative order that comes in.
Are we going to see the reintroduction of the harassment notices under this piece of legislation?
So the harassment, as I understood the harassment notice, was a non-legislative way of saying to somebody, oi, that's harassment. We're not prosecuting you, but we
It was
could.
used to establish a course of conduct, wasn't it?
And so it's entirely, that's entirely an operational point. The law won't rule out the reintroduction of harassment notices, I think.
Okay, thank you. And what else have you got of the stalking?
We have amendments to the sexual offences law to provide for protection for offences concerning intimate images. So at the moment you have the voyeurism offence, which effectively means it is an offence to take pictures of somebody in an intimate state. But really nothing is said about how images which are consensually transferred should be treated when a relationship ends, or just anything about further transmission of images that have been legitimately acquired, or things that have been illegitimately acquired but in ways that are outside of the current voyeurism law. There's this whole area of activity where you can have a life-ruining experience, but technically, and in Jersey, it doesn't quite meet the crime definitions. So we're effectively expanding that out to cover the area. We have a law, and it's very, very narrow, specifically to make non-fatal strangulation an offence. And as I think you've mentioned yourself in the past, Deputy, that's a funny one, because in Jersey, where we don't have a statutory arrangement for assaults, creating one offence of one particular type of assault sits weirdly. But we've been passing that back and forth with the criminal division of the Law Officers Department, legal advisors, and the drafter, and we think we've got it. We haven't consulted the AG and the courts yet on that one, but we think we have it. Amendments to the domestic abuse law to introduce pre-conviction, what we are calling emergency barring notices and emergency barring orders. That's in line with the Istanbul Convention phraseology. In the UK, they're called domestic abuse protection orders, and the intention is that prior to there being a conviction for domestic abuse, the police will be able to take, if they so choose, and it's legitimate, take doorstep action to ensure the perpetrator of the suspected domestic abuse has to have effectively a period of time away from the alleged victim. That's a short period. It's as drafted now, I think it's 72 hours. And then you're able to approach a court and say, this is really happening, we've gathered more evidence, we can establish to the satisfaction of the court there is harm and a risk of future harm, and then the order can run for a longer period.
Okay, thank you.
We also
Got the
have,
list, okay.
last one, promise, a new offence. This is very specifically to meet a Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force recommendation to address public sexual harassment. So in the UK, you have, I think it's harassing, abusive and disorderly behaviour. which is effectively a shouting abuse of someone in the street. And then you have a little note that says, if you get that and it's sexual, it's a different offence of sexually aggravated. Da, da, da. That structure doesn't quite work in Jersey because, as usual, we never do things quite the same way. But what we're creating is effectively an aggravated form of our threatening, abusive and disorderly offence, predicated on someone's sex or sexually motivated or sexually active. So actually it's slightly wider than UK offence.
Okay, so is that going to be a standalone piece of legislation as well?
It is going to be...
Or is it going to be put in the public order law?
It's going to the public order.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And have you got an indication of when all these are going to be lodged?
The stalking, domestic abuse, public sexual harassment have been through the internal criminal justice stakeholder review. My anticipation is that we're going to be seeing final amendments to those, and then we'll pass them to scrutiny for consideration, and then we'll be lodging as soon as we can. We still have to take the non-fatal strangulation and intimate image through that internal review, but we should be able to do that in the next couple of weeks, and then it'll be coming to you. But if the scrutiny panel is satisfied with them, that should be our last gate prior to lodging.
Lodged by the end of the year.
That is still our intention.
Thank you. Is there any plan to update changes to the road traffic law at all?
As in?
The roadside testing?
In relation to
For the drug
drugs,
things like that,
the drugs testing.
yeah.
I've got a. Why am I thinking that this is sitting somewhere?
Yes, I can help.
I know I
make
am.
A general point on the previous matter of law and then the one on road traffic. It won't have escaped the panel's attention, and it certainly hasn't escaped the Minister's attention, that there is a number of new laws that will need to be enforced, which will clearly generate additional demand, where we're already seeing quite significant VORG-related demand. VORG-related type offences are up 27% over the last 3 years and 26% already this year. So with the introduction of a number of new laws, clearly to keep islanders safe, particularly female victims and young people, that will generate an additional demand, as it already is. The Minister is alive to this, and we have, you will have seen a line in the proposed 2026 budget that references that, with a view to seeking additional funding into 2027. In terms of road traffic law, there have been discussions between ourselves and the Department of Infrastructure, because there is an absence of law that allows roadside testing for drugs. There has been some work done in the UK, certainly in the last year from my memory, which is showing that actually more people with the propensity of drugs in their system than alcohol. So we do need to have better roadside testing technology in a way that we do breath. We need to look at, and some of my team are looking at things like strips and other things to test, roadside test, what drugs might be in your system and you are driving. But we also need the law to be able to do that. So I can provide a written update on that, but the Minister's absolutely right. There have been discussions about it.
But I've got something here that says a new provision addressing drug driving is currently being drafted and is considered a legislative priority. Because obviously it sits under...
But it would be a legislative priority for the Infrastructure Minister.
Yes, not for me.
Not to put it into the road traffic law. Okay, thank you. Can you?
Sorry, I was just going to say that one of the things that fits in with drug driving is, of course, the use of medicinal cannabis and people driving whilst under the influence of drugs that they've obtained legally. And I think that is probably an increasing problem. In jurisdictions where they are doing roadside testing, it makes no difference whether you've obtained cannabis legally or illegally, you're prosecuted.
Ability to
Yep.
drive, yeah.
Ability to
And
drive
at the
is
moment, we
anybody.
haven't got a clue at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Can you provide us the latest statistics on speeding offences, including any notable trends or comparisons with previous years?
Speeding offences for this year, comparisons and trends. Year to date, the States of Jersey Police, the SOJP, have recorded 797 speeding process offences, representing a 14% decrease compared to 928 in 2024. However, this figure marks a 67% increase compared to 477 offences recorded in the same period in 2023. SOJP continues to take a proactive approach in targeting roads and road users that pose the greatest risk using data-driven enforcement strategies. All road traffic collisions attended by the States of Jersey Police are recorded and submitted to Infrastructure and Environment, including any contributory factors via the Stats 19 report framework. This data provides vital intelligence on high-risk roads and forms targeted policing efforts, particularly where speeding is identified as a contributory factor. Anything else you want to add on that, Robin?
Other than to say that, speeding and antisocial driving continues to be so easily the top 5 issues within my inbox, and certainly a concern to islanders. And as the Minister may describe later, some of the efforts we are now going to, one, clearly getting the right data, but also some of the recent technology, which I'll leave the Minister just to address in terms of safety cameras, which I know has occupied you and other members of this panel on previous occasions.
No, go for it, Robin.
Okay, thank you.
You go for it.
I was
You're on
going
the
to give you
flow.
the announcement, Minister, but last week we actually received this camera.
Oh,
And I feel as though over the last year I've been saying to you, yes, it's on its way, yes, it's on its way. Originally it was due to be around here in about February, March. I received a photograph of it in one of our offices from the inspector that's running it. So we now have the camera. As I've mentioned before, it's a very sophisticated camera, a very sophisticated piece of kit. I have to give a nod also to the Department of Infrastructure, who have helped us fund this. And they are particularly engaged in road safety with us. The relationship is a very strong one. So we are now just calibrating that bit of kit. That kit will be deployed very soon. We are looking at what is described as a soft launch. So we will look to deploy, and I'll happily update you at the next scrutiny panel with some facts and figures around it. My hope is, ideally, that it acts as a deterrent. I want it to act as a deterrent, but I also have to manage people's expectation that it's one camera. But we want to see if it works for us, and it encourages people to drive more slowly or within limits, and where it doesn't, people find very quickly that the evidence we will provide will be very quick and they'll be before the courts.
Are there any other amendments to the road traffic law that might be required to get the best out of this camera?
Deputy, certainly none that have been raised with me. It could be that as we progress in the use of this, and if we bump up into any gaps in legislation or more legislation, I might be in a better place, but none have been alerted to me, other than the one you've mentioned, which doesn't refer to the camera.
Okay, so in terms of sort of the administration of the notices that it's going to generate and that sort of thing?
Certainly there have been discussions about how we might want to use different types of notices, but of course we understand that that's quite an involved subject, which you will know very well.
Been
and it will
bouncing
include-
around for a very long time.
Yes, and also require a very careful and sensitive negotiation and discussion with the parishes as well. So let's use this as our opportunity to see how things could work differently, but we will progress carefully and sensitively on that.
Thank you.
okay. So would it be that the soft launch might occur before our next public hearing?
Hopefully.
If it doesn't, there may be a demotion. So I'm being playful. No, it certainly will.
Yeah, that's good news then. Okay, so I have some questions now around the Colpa app. This is an app. It's a new secure digital evidence platform being trialled by the States of Jersey Police for 12 months, which allows victims and witnesses to report crimes and submit digital evidence directly to the police through their phone or computer. Minister, could you outline how you expect the trial to change the way officers receive and process digital evidence?
Well, rather than me answering that question, I think that the Chief will be able to sort of give you an update on where we're actually at with it and how successful it's been already.
Yeah.
Thank you, Minister. The Colpa app, which for those viewing this can download from the usual places, it is a way whereby victims or witnesses can share evidence via the app. Now, ordinarily, we would take their phones from them. Clearly, they would surrender their phones and we would download that data. What Colpa does is it eliminates the need to take their phones, and they can download their data using the Colpa app. Far better for them. There are enormous checks and balances with that in terms of the metadata, i.e. the information that's behind the evidence that is provided to us. We are very quickly able to download CCTV footage, footage from phones, etc. So it is still early days. In fact, it's day 48 in this. So far, the feedback has been good. It is a 12-month pilot, which is at no cost to the public purse. So the first 6 months is funded by Colpa, and the second 6 months, broadly speaking, is funded by, supported by Digital Jersey, for which I'm very grateful. They too see this as a new and modern way, which not only works best for the victim and those witnesses, but it also gives us the opportunity to better progress cases more quickly. I met with one of the entrepreneurs only yesterday, or the entrepreneur who has introduced this. First 47 days as of yesterday, evidence relating to 78 incidents have been shared using Colpa. That is, so far, users have shared 534 pieces of verifiable, authenticated, in other words, the metadata, digital forensic evidence. And the offences include drug dealing, theft, RTCs, harassment and abuse, domestic abuse, violence with injury. It is encouraging first signs. There has been some good feedback from police officers who tend to be the harshest critic for new bits of technology if they don't work. It is, as I've said, early days. It is a 12-month review, and we will have a review, 12-month pilot. We'll have a review after 6 months to see if it works for the victim, and it works for States Jersey Police, and it works for justice.
Okay, so that's good feedback so far. And I had a lot more questions. I think you've answered quite a few of them already, but I'm just trying to see what else we could ask. Is the app usable by under 18s as well? It is, isn't it? I think.
Yes, it is. There are obviously some other checks and balances with younger people. So the Colpa app is protected by a PIN number, which users can use after registration. As I am advised here, in the US and indeed in the UK, children under 13 are typically not legally capable of consenting to any form of contract. So Colpa has had to determine whether or not to block users aged 13 or potentially up to 18 years old, that they could potentially abuse a platform without recourse. So Colpa has chosen not to block anyone, and the platform is made accessible to all users, no matter of their age.
Okay. Do you know if any third sector organisations which work directly with victims were consulted as part of the introduction?
Yes, it's my understanding that Colpa have spoken to JDAS and Victims First. My information is that has been positively supported, and both of whom have had training sessions and have posters and leaflets to distribute.
Okay. Are there any concerns about the security and integrity of using a third-party provider?
Yes is the answer, but an enormous amount of work and thought has gone into this. And indeed, the Information Commissioner has also been engaged, and indeed, she and a colleague were at the launch of Culper probably about 48 days ago. What we are keen to do with Culper is to be as transparent as possible, to work out, where are any of the issues and concerns. And so far, they think we've overcome all of those. But that's the reason why we're having a 12-month project to test it. I have not heard yet a disconsenting voice, or a voice that is not in agreement with this. But it's new ground, it's innovative, but it's not without its risks. So we want to proceed cautiously.
And considering that, with it being innovative and so on, are there formal agreements in place to safeguard sensitive police data?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we cannot safeguard data, if we cannot safeguard that sensitive data, whether it's Culper or anything, we lose the trust and confidence of islanders. So that is precious to us. So I'm confident that we're in a good place with that.
And is the matter of consent fully understood, do you think, by people using this about uploading their sensitive material?
I believe that there are a number of opportunities within the app to advise those that are using it with the appropriate checks and balances.
And sorry.
Go for it.
And what training has been provided to officers and staff to support the use of this new platform?
I've lost count of the number of officers that have received the training for this over a number of weeks, including the Culper and the people representing Culper coming to the police station to help brief officers. So a significant amount of training has gone into it. And you get to understand whether things are working well is when I go to briefings and unsolicited Culper is mentioned. As helping officers get the evidence they need. So, that's a very anecdotal piece of unscientific information, but it's a useful benchmark when we're dealing with police officers using new technology.
So that's good. So if this continues to work well, you've mentioned about 6 months, but when will a decision be made about a permanent rollout?
It's probably getting close to the 12 months, I would think. Probably we'll be in a better position after about 10. 6 months, of course, will be, go, no go. Do we go for the next 6 months? Early indications are we will. Of course, the issue will then come, how will it be funded?
Yeah.
And that's always the painful bit. Now, if the information that's provided suggests that we save an enormous amount of police time, court time, the judicial process and the like, then there can be a wider discussion about how it will be funded. It is not an enormously expensive piece of software, but it would need to be funded. There is no budget for it.
So you'll be looking to gather that evidence about the saving of resource time. Yeah. Okay. I think that's all our questions, actually, isn't it? I think we've gone through the whole hearing already. So, unless there's anything else to add.
No, I think that's fabulous. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.